All right, so we're moving on to the most disappointing thing from the college football weekend. Michigan getting throttled by Texas, 36%. But the winner is Colorado getting manhandled by Nebraska.
Somehow you're skating under the radar here, CJ.
Because it was the perfect weekend for Michigan to lay that egg. Because it was so many interesting things happening. You had the Northern Illinois thing. Penn State was looking like they were going to choke one off against Bowling Green. You had the tough weekend by the SEC when you think about what happened with Mississippi State and Auburn and Kentucky, even though Kentucky got beat by South Carolina, but you shouldn't be getting beat like that by South Carolina, right? Like, it was a tough weekend for the SEC, but Michigan losing to Texas, completely under everybody's radar. It'll be the second or the third thing people talk about when they talk about college football. Nebraska beat the hell out of Colorado, though, Lane. And who could have seen that coming? Everybody.
Us, yeah.
Everybody is the answer. Did you have a chance to peek at that?
Yeah, I watched it. I was watching. I mean, I was sort of hate watching it, to be honest.
Well, everybody is hate watching.
No, not because of Colorado, because of Nebraska. Dylan Raiola had committed to go to the University of Georgia. He actually, in high school last year, he moved just outside Athens and played high school football and signed to go to Georgia. And then Carson Beck said he was staying at Georgia, and Dylan Raiola was like, all right, I'm out of here. And he went to Nebraska with Matt Rule, who showed up there, and turned into Patrick Mahomes. Like, what is going on here?
I saw that. I was like,
he's got the haircut, the number, the headband. He even runs like him now. Like, this was a little strange.
I mean, if you want to be the best, you got to play like the best.
Look like
the best, I guess. I don't know.
He does look like him. He played great. I'll be honest. Like, he was really good. I was kind of hate watching this because I was like, man, that guy should be the backup in Georgia, and he should be starting next year when Carson Beck goes to the NFL.
He can still transfer.
Yeah, that's true. I can see we got the quarterback from Arizona anyway. Rashada is the backup. But he was awesome. And look, Colorado, like, CJ, we've been on top of this for a long time. They don't have a good roster. They have two good players. They have two great players. And then other than that, they don't really have very much. And Deion said as much. Did you see him after the game where he said Child Protective Services is going to be on me because I let Shedeur and Travis play with this roster? Like,
well, get a better roster, coach.
Yeah, who put the roster together? Like, that you put the roster together, Prime. Come on, man.
That's the toughest thing about being a high-level college football coach right now. It is we make a whole lot of skill position players. We make a whole lot of good to decent to great quarterbacks. Right? We get those by the bushel. We don't make a lot of big old fat boys who are athletes. We make maybe in a class 15 of those. Yeah. And 5 of them are going to Georgia. And at one point in time, another 5 was going to Alabama. So that left 5 for everybody else to fight over. And that's where Colorado is really the difference between Colorado and everybody else is in those trenches. It is offensive and defensive line, out those linebackers in there as well.
Even then, Alabama had the number 1 offensive lineman in the class, the guy who played right tackle and started for them against South Florida, and he got whistled for holding like 6 times against South Florida. So, like, even then, it's hard for, like, the best players in the class to level up when you get to that next level. Colorado doesn't have the line. On defense, like, are they teaching targeting? Like, it feels like every time somebody comes open in the secondary, somebody from Colorado is getting whistled for suspected targeting. Like, those guys, I mean, I get it. You want to make a highlight play. This might be, we're going to be old here and blame social media. This might be the fault of that. But it feels like every time I'm watching Colorado, like, there's at least one guy getting thrown out for targeting or they're reviewing it multiple times during the game.
Yeah, that's just how they play. They want to be edgy. They want to be little shit starters.
You can't be like Miami in the 80s anymore.
Like, you can if you're good at it. They're not good. They don't have the athletes to be Miami in the 80s. Miami was breaking the rules and winning games doing it, right? Miami was getting penalized and it didn't matter. Colorado is not that. And Warren Sapp is on staff. Of course, we know Coach Prime is the head coach. They've coached this team from all the reports that are coming out from players who have left. They coach them with like that attitude, with that extra bit of nasty.
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to be the difference, right? That's what made in their minds, that's what made the Miami team so great. That's what made Alabama so good on their run. Those Clemson teams, some of those Ohio State teams. the nasty is what made them good to go from good to great.
Yeah.
But really what made them go from good to great is they had better athletes than everybody else. Like it's one thing to be, who was running around? Clemson players were running around fondling Ohio State at one point, right? Like, remember that? It's one thing to be, in the semifinal game. Yes, it was Clemson fondling Ohio State players in the bottom of the pile, but they were doing that up 30. If you can get away with stuff like that, if you're good, and that's how good Clemson was, it made all of us forget. None of us remember that Clemson was grabbing a handful of Ohio State players' private parts in the bottom of piles because Clemson went on to win the national championship afterwards, right? You can do those types of things. You can get the targeting. You can be extra in the bottom of the piles. You can do all the chirping and all the talking on social media before and after games. You can do all of that if you're good enough to win, and Colorado isn't. They barely beat a FCS school, right? We hyped Colorado up, and we talked about that North Dakota State game like those were peers playing one another. And it was peers, and that's damning for Colorado. You can't have your peer be an FCS school, especially if you're in a power conference. Now, I will say, look at where Colorado was before Coach Prime got there. 5 wins this year is another good year for Coach Prime. God forbid he get them to a bowl. Like, it takes time to build things.
But it shouldn't anymore.
Why shouldn't
Just
it?
go pay guys. Get them in there.
It's not like they're the only ones who can do that, though. If you're a high-level offensive tackle, I'm a high-level offensive guard, and Georgia comes and says, hey, we got 250 for you right now. And Colorado says, hey, not so fast. I got 300 for you right now. Where are you going? Because I'm going to Georgia.
I would too, but there's probably guys who wouldn't. You see guys who
don't make it
all the time.
We don't make enough of those type of guys, though.
By the way, Devin pointed out in the chat one thing about that Colorado-Nebraska game. Colt McCoy was doing color commentary on that game. I turned that thing on, and I thought it was Landon Donovan, the soccer player. Do you remember he used to do games on Fox, and he would just be like, he had like a real reedy voice, and he'd be like, I'd kind of like to see him do that. And then I noticed like a bunch of people tweeting like, can we get Colt McCoy a coffee? Like, what's going on? Like, he was like, he had zero energy. Huh?
His voice was a little high pitch also.
Yeah, and he just didn't seem to be like into it.
Yeah.
The Jessica Benson Show with CJ Hurt, live every weekday at 8 a.m.